Hey guys, today I'm going to talk to you about several different kinds of knives. Now, all of these are fixed blades, yes, but there's a lot more to it than that, and today we're going to get into that. So, first of all, at the top of our list, we have a Bowie knife. A Bowie knife is typically a very large, heavy knife. Well, as a matter of fact, a Bowie knife is only a very large, heavy knife. There's no such thing as a small or medium-sized Bowie knife. They're always big and exceeding in length than most other knives. They also typically are full tang for added strength. Here and here, we have two combat knives. This one here is a USMC K-bar knife, which is used by, as the name would suggest, the United States Marine Corps. This is a modern reproduction of a vintage SOG knife, which was used in the Vietnam War by American MAC-V SOG troops. This is another kind of combat knife. This one is no longer used in today's wars by American troops, but it was used in the Vietnam War. Not this particular knife, but this style of knife. This is a SOG knife, but this is a modern reproduction, as in it's been remade, copying the same style and shape and sheath as the original knives. And lastly, you have your hunting knives. Now, there are a lot more knives in the world than just this. There's a lot more different designs and styles, but these are just four. We're just going to talk about these four today. Hunting knives are used for, well, hunting or outdoors tasks. A knife like this would probably be used for skinning an animal you have hunted, or defense out in the middle of the wild. So, now that we've talked about the different kinds of knives in front of us, we're going to move on to different blade shapes. So, as you will notice, these knives all have different blade shapes in some way or another. However, three of these knives actually share the same blade shape. Look at that. Should have washed this. Yeah, I had this in the mud the other day. I was doing a bit of batoning with it, didn't wash it, so you're gonna have to excuse that. But yeah. So three of these knives actually share the same blade shape, and that is a clip point blade. The Bowie knife has a clip point blade. A clip point blade is where it goes along flat along the back, it curves down to a sharper point, and then carries on normally. And as you will see on the Bowie knife, this also has a very deep belly. The K-bar also has a clip point blade, which, like I said, brings the tip down to a sharper point for greater penetration, as does the Buck 120. If you'll excuse the dirt, you will see that it also has a clip point blade, which, once again, brings the tip to a sharper point. This one, however, does not have a clip point blade. This one, the SOG knife, has a drop point blade. It's called that because the point is dropping off of the spine of the blade. You will also notice that this knife has serrations on the top. Alright, so there's something about blade shapes. Now we're going to move on to a different type of detail that a lot of knives have. This is called a fuller or a blood groove. Many knives have this, such as the Buck 120. This is a blood groove. This is present on both sides of the blade. There are many different lengths and sizes of blood grooves or fullers. This one is thin and about 2 inches long. The SOG knife does not have a blood groove. The K-bar knife does have a blood groove. It's about 1.5 inches long and tends to be a bit thicker than the Buck's blood groove. The Bowie knife does not have a blood groove. However, some knives may possess a blood groove and some may not. It doesn't really matter the style of knife. A blood groove or fuller is not designed to catch blood in here. It's a bit gruesome. So if you don't want to hear what a blood groove is truly for, you can stop watching the video now. If you do, I will continue to talk about it and you can continue to listen. Okay. A blood groove is designed so that in a combat situation, should you thrust a blade into an assailant, the fuller or blood groove will allow you to break suction and pull the knife out of the body easier. That's what the fuller is for. And that's why it's present on knives that would typically be used in a combat situation, like the K-bar knife or the Buck 120, which could be used in a defensive situation against dangerous wildlife, like bears or wolves. Next, we're going to move on to different handle types. Now, we're not going to get into the exact handle types and all those details. We're mostly going to talk about the materials that are made out of and little details like finger grooves and choils. So first off, on the Buck 120, you see this has some very light finger grooves going along the blade, which help me get a better grip on the knife, which tightens up my grip and allows me to have more control over the knife. And, well, this knife I would most likely be using in a survival or hunting situation. The SOG knife also has finger grooves, albeit more aggressive than that of the Bucks. The K-bar does not have finger grooves. These lines are not finger grooves. They're simple separations within the leather washers of the stacked leather handle. The Bowie knife also has finger grooves. Finger grooves are not standard to just one type of knife. They can exist on folding knives, fixed blades such as these, or other types of knives. Now, handle materials. There are different handle materials for each knife. The Buck 120 has a black phenolic handle, which is a lot like a plastic. The SOG knife has a rubbery plastic handle that is checkered for increased grip. As I mentioned before, the K-bar has a leather handle. This is stacked leather washers which have been treated in some kind of way to give it a very hard texture to it, but it is also very grippy. However, this type of handle is very susceptible to water damage. The Bowie knife, however, it could be different on all kinds of knives. This particular Bowie knife has a rubber handle, which can exist on other knives. Now we're going to move on to details. Now, some knives have different tangs. Some of these are full tang, some of these are rat tail tang, and some of these don't even have a tang at all. But each of these knives has a tang in one way or another. The tang is the continuous piece of metal that is the blade, which runs into the handle for added strength. This knife has a rat tail tang. You cannot see it anywhere on the knife because it's not big enough to be seen. It is contained within the handle of the knife. This knife has a full rat tail tang. You can't see it around the edges. However, you can see it appearing at the end of the knife. This increases strength. However, it's still not as strong as the full tang knife. The K-bar also has a full rat tail tang. You see it appearing out of the bottom at the pommel. The Bowie knife, however, and like many Bowie knives, has a full tang, where the piece of metal fills in the full handle. You can see it in the middle of the grooves and the grip, going all around the knife. This is the most strongest design. Next, we're going to move on to other details about a knife. This right here is known as the crossguard. What it does, it essentially protects your hand should you thrust it into something, so that your finger and hand does not slip onto the rather sharp blade and cut yourself. Most knives have this feature. Some have big crossguards, some have small crossguards, some are a little more aggressive than others, such as this one. This one has a very generous crossguard, which is sure to stop my finger from slipping onto the blade. The K-bar also has a very generous crossguard, a thin piece of metal, 1095 Crowvan steel, which protects my hand. And while there isn't a very visible crossguard on this one, there actually is, but it is simply blended into the simple design and shape of the knife. The crossguard is right here. It's within this flare, and it goes down here. Next, we're going to move on to another detail about knives. These are known as choils. choils, or finger choils, are extra little grooves on the blade which allow you to choke up on the knife and get more control. The Buck 120 does indeed have a finger choil. It's right here. This allows me, should I need to wrap my finger in this unsharpened, safe spot on the blade, albeit this is quite a small spot, and allows me to choke up and get more control over the blade in an outdoors situation or task. This also has a type of finger choil. It is much longer than the Buck 120, and it's a different shape, but nonetheless, it's still there. And once again, it can be used to choke up on the blade to get more control. The K-bar, however, does not have a finger choil. It simply has an unsharpened piece of metal here. I would not recommend choking up on this blade, as your finger could go forward if it is on this side of the crossguard and cut yourself. The Bowie knife has a very generous finger choil, right in here. This allows you to choke up on a very generous amount of area for even more control. Next, we're going to move on to another thing, and that's known as serrations. Now, only one knife here has actual serrations, and that is the SOG knife. Serrations can appear on the edge of your blade or on the spine of your blade, where in the situation for the SOG knife, it is on the spine of the blade. Situations that require serrations can include combat situations, where it can be used to add to the weaponized factor of the tool. They have uses in survival situations, which add in better cutting ability over rougher materials, and can sometimes even act as a saw if aggressive enough of a pattern. There are many different patterns of serrations as well. And these are a very simple wavy shape, but there are many different styles. So there you go, guys. I hope you enjoyed my video on different types of knives. Please like, subscribe, and leave a nice comment, and have a good day.